colleagues from not only the College of Business, but from other colleges also. So we want to get started. I just want to tell everyone that there will be a question and answer period at the end. So we want you to upload your questions into the chat, as we always do every forum, and Dr. Casson and the team will try to answer everything for you. And as I said, Dr. Allen will probably join us later on. But anyway, thank you so much for joining. And Dr. Casson, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, Horton Nation, and thank you, Dr. Hawkins, for that introduction. We are excited today to recognize Global Awareness Month and also to share with you some of the incredible work that is being performed by our esteemed faculty on campus. We will have a panel discussion, as Dr. Hawkins noted, followed by Q&A. So I would first like to introduce our panel. Our first presenter will be Dr. Constance Begray, who is a professor of management and entrepreneurship within the College of Business. Dr. Begray will be followed by Dr. Donna Patterson, who is professor and chair of the Department of History, Political Science, Philosophy, and Director of Africana Studies. Next, we will have Dr. Ying Hong Chang, who is professor of History, Political Science, and Philosophy. And our cleanup panelists will be Dr. Marquise Alvarez, who is the Associate Dean of the College of Agriculture, Science, and Technology. If we can pull up the presentation, please. Next slide, please. So as we see here, Global Diversity Awareness Month. The focus and objective of the Awareness Month is to pay tribute to the diverse minds, beliefs held by all cultures around the world. Again, at Delaware State University, we are proud of the diversity within both our faculty, staff, and student population, and we celebrate these differences both academically in our curricular and our co-curricular activities. Again, our panelists will share some of the exciting work that they're currently doing in this space. Next slide, please. So, Delaware State University has launched the Global Institute for Equity, Inclusion, and Civil Rights. This Global Institute is designed to address just the topic of today, which is global awareness, along with providing solutions to some of the world's most challenging problems. The mission of the Institute, as noted here, is to network, design, to develop and share proven pathways for transforming communities of color and closing the gap to an inclusive economy. And we think about our vision, we think about closing that gap to our inclusive economy across all cultures, across all walks of life. Next slide, please. So the Institute's focus is around three areas. First being equity, second being inclusion, and third being civil rights. Next slide, please. We have four centers that is driving the objective and mission of the Global Institute. The first is the Center for Neighborhood Revitalization and Research that is led by Dr. Dorothy Dillard. The second is the Center for Health Disparities, led by Dr. Derek Scott. The third, Trauma Academy, is led by Dean Gwyn, Dr. Gwendolyn Scott Jones. And finally, our Center for Global Africa, led by Professor Ezra Ahura. Next slide, please. So now I would like to introduce our first panelist, Dr. Constance Begray. Thank you, Constance.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, thank you, Dr. Casson. Good morning, everyone. So as my dean indicated, I'm Constance Begray. I'm a professor of management and entrepreneurship. And I'm originally from the Ivory Coast. I studied in Europe before coming to the United States. I had the opportunity to travel through Latin America. In 2013, I was in Brazil, Argentina, and Chile, and in 2019 in Cuba. So based on this experience, I approached the dean last year, and I decided to start a global entrepreneurship education initiative. So we started this, and if you can move to the slide, we have three areas that I would like to focus on my discussion today. One is a symposium that we organized on entrepreneurship education in Africa, and the symposium was held on September 17 and September 18 virtually. We organized it in collaboration with Johns Hopkins University, Morgan State, North Carolina Central, and a private institution called R&D Associates, and a startup university in Ivory Coast we call Sika University, and I will talk about it. We had 70 people who attended virtually. It was sponsored by the College of Business. And the output we want to take out from this symposium is organizing proceedings, a book, and having YouTube posting. This to indicate that the College of Business is engaged in expanding entrepreneurship education outside the United States. And as a follow-up to this symposium, we also wrote a grant and received it. Next slide. Next slide, please. From the State Department, we had a grant of $44,000 to train virtually entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs in Uganda. So we start next month through the Global Entrepreneurship Week. We launch this program. We will start it really effectively in late January next year, and we plan to be there. The team is composed of the people from the garage. The team is, I don't know if you are familiar with Troy Farmer and Lily Crawford, who is the director of the DSED, and Troy Farmer is the director of the garage. So this is what we did for entrepreneurship education in emerging and developing countries. The third portion is an initiative I started before the Global Entrepreneurship Initiative. Next slide, which is to start a private university in Ivory Coast. And I call it Sika University. Sika is a name, is a word in my African language, which means gold. If something is precious, it's gold or it's precious, then you call it Sika. So the problem that we try to address in the Ivory Coast and most African countries is when students finish high school or college, they expect the government to give them a job or someone else to give them a job. But this is not sustainable. So what we did is to use my knowledge here and focus on teaching entrepreneurship. So we started the program, the entrepreneurship program in this university last month, September 27th. And our mission is to create a new generation, as I indicated here, of students or graduates who can create in the area of entrepreneurship, engineering, and technology. And we use a blended education format that we have a small contingent of faculty members teaching face-to-face, mostly English, so that the student will be proficient. And we have people from outside the Ivory Coast. Some are located in England, in Finland, and in the United States, who teach through Zoom and other platforms. So this is what I wanted to share with you. And also we have the students use MOOCs, but we haven't started the MOOCs program. But once they become proficient in English, then we will use it. And they can collaborate on some project with students from Delaware State University. So this is what I wanted to really share with the audience today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Begrave. Next slide, please. Dr. Donna Patterson.
Hi, thank you. So today I'm going to talk a bit about my research, starting with my book project, Pharmacy in Senegal, going to Ebola, and if time permitting, a little bit on COVID. So my book, Pharmacy in Senegal, looks at the creation of medical professionals in French West Africa and post-colonial Senegal. I go in on pharmacists, but I look at midwives, doctors, and others. But one of the areas that I look at in my book actually looks at early epidemics and pandemics, and what the impact of these early epidemics and pandemics, how they impacted both colonial and post-colonial Senegal. Some of these epidemics and pandemics included yellow fever, smallpox, bubonic plague, but also the 1918 to 1919 influenza pandemic that went around the world. including to the US, and some of these others also touched the US. For instance, yellow fever came to New Orleans in the 19th and 20th centuries. Next slide, please. Thank you. So jumping really far, moving kind of from history to something closer to present, Ebola in West Africa. So I'm currently writing a book that's called Ebola, West Africa and the World. Ebola actually began in what is the current day Democratic Republic of the Congo, at the time Zaire, in 1976. So Ebola existed well before you may have learned about it, probably in 2014. And so in this book project, I start by looking at some of this history of Ebola's origins in what was Zaire, what that looked like, some of the early response, but also just identifying a new virus. And as you know, now we had something similar happen in 2020 when you find a new virus, well, in late 2019, and then have to sequence and identify this virus. And so I look at that and I jump really into 2014 through 2016, which is the height of this Ebola epidemic in West Africa. What is significant is there had never been an Ebola outbreak in West Africa before. It happened, as I said, in other parts of the continent, but never in West Africa. There'd been one case, just someone who got it from the lab, but no epidemic. So it was unprecedented in that it was the first, but also the location, and it hit a lot of major cities. So as someone who does this work, both in global health, but also epidemics and pandemics, as soon as I learned about it in early spring 2014, I knew it was going to spread. I knew it was going to spread within the sub-region, but also outside of the sub-region. So going to the globe, so not just, COVID and influenza and these other things, but Ebola spreads, as you know, to the US. There's some cases in Europe, but definitely throughout the sub-region and into some other countries. The three hardest hit countries were Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. And in this slide, the first slide to your left, to my left, shows you it's a treatment center, and that's in Guinea. So it's in Ebola treatment center in Guinea, West Africa. And then the second slide is a group of men who are washing their hands before they enter a bank. So they're taking safety precautions, not to try to prevent the spread of Ebola as they're going to do their business. Next slide. And here are two quick photos. The one to the left shows the case of Duncan, Thomas Duncan, who travels from Liberia through Brussels to the United States, and where the United States had its first case of Ebola in Dallas, Texas. And then the second photo that you see there is actually the photo at the airport in Paris, one of Paris's airports, and it's what to do if you've traveled from a country that has Ebola during the outbreak. And I actually had my own picture, but it was not showing up properly in the PowerPoint. And so I just found one online to put there so you could see a picture of what that poster looked like. And I think that poster is very important because it really underscores both that and the picture to your left underscores how global health is interconnected. We don't live in a silo. And I think COVID, last slide, has really showed us that things are interconnected. And so when I started this Ebola project, I was talking to an editor about it. And in the last chapter of this book looks at emerging disease. So I talked about a number of diseases that are emerging that already existed, but also the potential for future diseases. And I started this project a few years ago, but as you can see, in 2020 and continuing 2021 going to 2022, we are in a global pandemic. Last slide. Thank you. And so this is our last slide, just a snippet of what we've seen over the past almost 2 years. Some of the masks when doctors and other health professionals were reusing their masks, and also the front page last fall of Delaware State News talking about precautions going into the holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson, for sharing that incredible work. Next, we have Dr. Chang.
It
Hello?
looks like Dr.
Yes.
Chang is having some tech
Yes.
difficulties.
I am in. I am
Oh, you're in. Okay.
Yeah, I am in. Yeah. Okay. So, can I start talking?
You can.
Yes.
We can't see you. Can you turn on your video?
Okay. Let me. All right. Is that okay? Can you see me now?
We can't see you,
Yeah.
but we can hear you. So
Yes, go ahead and present, sir. Go ahead and present.
All right. So, good morning, everybody. I'm very honored to participate in this excellent session discussing the global initiative in our university. Okay. So, and my particular contribution to this project is my recent research program. The title is Two Lives for a Mile, African American Soldiers Building the Burma Road. For that project, I was awarded the National Humanities Center Residential Fellow for this fall and the next spring. And I will be there next spring and into the very early summer. So the center is a national research center. It is independent. It's open to scholars from every regions of the world. So every year it takes like 6% out of about 700 applicants globally. So I saw the list. Most of them are American scholars. Some of them also come from Europe, Asia, Latin America, and Africa. So my project is an investigation of African American soldiers, the participation, their contribution in World War II, basically in the Pacific, Southeast Asia, Pacific region. They were building a highway to send American war materials, land lease materials to China, America's wartime ally at that time. So out of 15,000 American soldiers, more than 9,000 of them are Black soldiers. So they were the backbone. They are the major force of that big project. So it is a little known history in this country, but I think it is significant. So my research explores the transnational, transcontinental, and the global implications of African Americans, their contributions to the victory of World War II. I'm trying to answer some bigger questions: how African American soldiers trying to make sense of their contribution, their sacrifice, their hardship, of those things they experienced in a very remote global region, which historically has very little to do with African Americans. So. And their goal is the same as the major goals of most African American soldiers during the war, is WV, right? To have a victory overseas against fascism and domestically against racism. So they had an extra goal in that war. Okay, so 2 lives for a mile means 2 lives of American soldiers sacrificed. They died for on average 1 mile length of the highway. So the highway, so they achieved that. African American soldiers and other American soldiers, they achieved these success, overcoming, very, very, very tough, difficult situations, like subtropical, natural and climate elements, high mountains, very thick forests, all type of diseases, insects, animals, and the Japanese attacks, Japanese snipers. So the sacrifice, the amount of the sacrifice was rather high, about it should be more than the average of American sacrifice of American life during World War II. So I want to thank Dr. Edwards, Dr. Osei, and Dr. Patterson, my college and the department leaders, for their very strong support in my application and the entire process. So I am going to write a book out of that history, and hopefully I will get the book published before 2025, the big anniversary of the victory of World War II. Okay, so I think that's what I should report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Next, we have Dr. Alvarez.
Good morning, colleagues, and indeed, I'm pleased to have the honor to join this esteemed panel. Unfortunately, it seems I don't have the photogenic stature to be allowed to be seen. My computer is not allowing me to have my video. This part of the discussion is dealing with the benefit of our international collaborative linkages to our students. And so if we go to the next slide, you will see that the purpose is really to broaden the perspective to global citizenship. And indeed, this panel is very fitting to highlight the importance of this. And the other key thing we're addressing is the need to increase our minority participation in these international outreach, especially from the agriculture sector and our College of Ag Science and Technology and other colleges as well. And we want to strengthen international awareness of our undergraduates, and especially the bottom piece there is to enable global collaboration, partnership, and also to open up their minds to the zonal knowledge. How many of our students are aware that our neighbors, be it Mexico, Canada, and so on, they're doing research on some of the same things we're doing here? So it's good for our students to be familiar with these things. If we go to the next slide, please. And so the specific objectives are to build international educational research and extension partnerships, which we're achieving. You'll see the slides a little later. And then to develop scholarly enrichment among faculty and students, and to link programs to strengthen capacity for students by allowing them to participate in some of our international activities out there. Next slide, please. So one of our big projects, and there are a number of others, but this was a macro and major one, is the West African ASSES, we call it, but ASSES stands for Analytical Support Services and Evaluation for Sustainable Systems in Agricultural Environment and Trade. And this program provides services for capacity development in monitoring and evaluation, information dissemination, and knowledge sharing for the USAID West Africa Regional Economic Growth Office portfolio. So this is significant. This project is involved, next slide, please, in 21 West African countries, as you can see on the map. Let's move to the next slide, please. Oh, and it's in partnership with USDA, the University of Rhode Island, USDA Foreign Ag Service, sorry, and Delaware State University and Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. So we were the collaborators in implementing this ASSES project. Next slide, please. And one of the activities we have done is the West Africa Seed Program assessment. And this is just one. Here we had a team that went out and looked at the strategic area of seed supply and services to, especially to not just to small farmers, but mainly to them, and also the value chain around seed production and supply. And this is just one, but we also did the trade hub assessment for West Africa. And Dean Casson was the co-lead on the implementation of that activity. We also did the energy assessment, as well as fertilizer use and cotton production. Next slide, please. And here, we had the great opportunity to mobilize our students to get a hands-on orientation on how these assessments are made. You know, what is involved. They need to see how the GIS method is applied, the surveyor, how to download satellite images to monitor desertification and environmental changes. And the bottom left is showing that our students are not just joyriding out there. They actually go to the rural communities and participate in some of the activities that are happening there. Here, they were in one of the villages getting to understand how you make oil from oil palm. And the upper right is our group of students from our university partners, that is Delaware State, Florida A&M, UMES, and so on, participate and sending students to these missions in Costa Rica. And just in case, because of the travel difficulties these days, we have our boat ready to go across the seas. Next slide, please. So the experience and accomplishment. When we started these activities, we projected that we would reach a level of 30 students in a certain period of time. Let me assure you that we have quadrupled that. And even from 3 universities, now we have at least half of our HBCUs participating, HBCU land-grant universities participating in this event. And the next slide, please. And here, it has grown in popularity and strength. And this is a team from BSU and our ARD 1890 Foundation reviving and reinvigorating our MOU with Earth University in Costa Rica. At the same time, we also did it with Cartier. And then also we have functioning MOUs with the Case University in Jamaica as well. And not to mention, we still have effective MOUs with KNUST in Ghana. So in terms of next slide, please. In terms of the range of new opportunities that has grown out of this initiative, we now have our centers of excellence in global food security and defense. And under this center, we have programs for student success and workforce development. And we have programs for nutrition, health, and wellness. And all these bullets you see there, we already have funding to support students for capacity building and orientation. And the new orientation to international activities. And the new possibility right now that will be coming up is the one with the USAID collaboration with MSIs. And I'll say some more about this at some other time. And by this, I'd like to say thank you very much, Dean Casson and team.
Thank you, Dr. Alvarez. So as you see, this is just a few examples of how the university has leveraged its faculty, its students, and staff to bring both awareness and solutions. You know, on campus, we have a saying that we are students of problems, not disciplines. which essentially means to us that our requisite disciplines, be it economics or history or social sciences or agriculture, that is necessary, but it's not sufficient to solve the world's challenges. So we must work together. And at Delaware State University, we are committed and we're intentional around cross-disciplinary approaches to solving problems that are faced, not just locally, but also globally. So, Mr. McMillan, I'm gonna turn it over to you if we have any questions from the audience.
Okay, currently we would ask that if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and then we will be happy to direct that to Dr. Casson. Currently, there are no questions. Give it just a second.
Okay.
So, Mr. McMillan, while we're waiting for the questions, if I could just address our faculty, staff, and students. As Dr. Allen has said previously, we are going to be having a forum probably next week on upcoming homecoming logistics and how we will operate for the week of homecoming. It's going to be a great opportunity for all of faculty, staff, alumni, students to participate, but we want to do it in a way that we will be safe, pursuant to guidelines that we must follow. So that will be our next forum next Tuesday. So I want you to stay tuned. Mr. McMillan, do we have any questions yet?
If a student has been awarded the GAP and Expire scholarships but does not receive their first, wait a minute, I think this is more for the financial aid, so we're not going to take that. Can the panelists talk about any opportunities for students to be involved in the programs in Global Institute?
Would anyone, any of our panelists like to take that, or may I start? Do you want me to start?
Yes, there are opportunities, but as you're aware, it's not possible to travel at this time. Nonetheless, we are encouraging students to participate in our international webinars so that they can see and hear from our partners out there. And as soon as situations improve for travel, we will resume our international experiential learning missions. Thank you.
This is not a question,
but actually, I would like to add something to that. So, you know, within the university, specifically the College of Business, we have several areas of engagement if your interest lies in both global awareness and global engagement. Specifically, one of our centers, the University Center for Economic Development and International Trade, is currently doing work abroad in the area of asset mapping. We've done a lot of work in the Virgin Islands in this instance, and we're continuously updating that work to provide insight and knowledge to the U.S. Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands as well regarding their assets and their economic development strategies. Secondly, I believe it will be prudent of our students with this similar interest to engage with the garage. You heard Dr. Bergray speak about our garage. Our garage within the College of Business is our entrepreneurial innovation and maker space. And why that's important is because what drives the philosophy that drives the garage or the theme that drives the garage is the 17 UN Sustainable Goals. So these goals, we challenge our students to one, understand the goal, bring the awareness, and then help bring solutions to these challenges that are faced globally. So we have programming, and again, we encourage you to take part of that programming.
I want to jump into a bit. Our department too has taken students to Belize and Ghana and other places. we're actually looking to partner with people to expand faculty student research when it's easier to travel as the pandemic subsides a bit. But our faculty do work all over the globe. You just had a little snippet with Dr. Chang and I. My work is primarily, as you saw, on the African continent, but I do some work in the Caribbean and Europe. We have Dr. Robinson, who does work in Latin America, Dr. Osei, who does a lot of international work, Dr. Maru. So a lot of our faculty in our department do a lot of international work. And so there have been some opportunities, and we're looking for more in the future. Thank you.
I think this is an interesting question, which kind of ties to what Dr. Patterson was just saying. How do we proceed with international partnerships with the pandemic still in effect? Is there a way to pivot in order to keep growing?
I guess I'll start. Since you mentioned me, I'll be brief. I think there are some ways to pivot. For instance, last year we started a partnership with Mercy Corps, which is an international NGO for interns. And our department and our school was one of the founding partners with Mercy Corps. They are partnering with a number of HBCUs. Well, these discussions have been in place since 2018, 2019 or so. So the pandemic hits. And so they know that they wanted to have interns. And originally, interns could go anywhere that Mercy Corps serves, and that's all over the world. They have spots in the U.S., throughout the African continent, Europe, Asia, and all over the place. So at any rate, they had to pivot. So one of the things they did, our first intern actually interned with a organization. I believe they were based in Switzerland. And so it went virtual. And so that was the pivot in that way. So I think the virtual connection is one that we've been pivoting to, both with meetings and some of the internships and other opportunities. But hopefully things will get better in 2022 and we can have a greater sense of normalcy in traveling. Thank you.
I guess I would add to that statement. Thank you, Dr. Patterson. This is actually an extremely exciting time for the university. We will be hosting the European Union ambassadors on Monday, October 18th. And again, this is an incredible opportunity for the university to leverage its talent and resources for internships, for our students, for faculty exchange. And again, I would encourage you to get involved. We can leave our contact information in order for you to engage with us so we can put you in the right place. But I know the pandemic has slowed things down, but what it also has taught us is that the technology, the virtual platforms still allow us to exchange those ideas and those solutions that are needed around the world. So we could start right here on our campus with providing those solutions. And then when the opportunity presents ourselves, we can travel and get on the ground and touch the soil of our partners' land.
Absolutely, Dr. Casson. And I will add, we have an audience, but it's a small list, and we will have a link that will be going out likely this week. So for those of you who cannot attend in person, definitely log on.
And that was the last of our questions, Dr. Casson.
So first of all, let me thank Dr. Casson, Dr. Patterson, Dr. Begray, Dr. Alvarez, Dr. Chang. Thank you all for bringing the information. I was reading something in the chat where the person did not have a question but wanted to acknowledge that there was such good information given during this forum that they're taking away from it. I just, the different solutions and what have you, I just think that it's a good thing that we have individuals who are so engaged in an area that will benefit not only Delaware State University, but really benefit our students for the knowledge that they will obtain through this. And just not really knowing that you're that much, that you're so involved in the different areas, it was very enlightening for us. So I thank you, Dr. Casson, for leading this as always. And to everybody else, I thank you. To our campus community, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I don't see Dr. Allen on the call. Mr. McMillan, is our president with us yet?
He is not.
Okay. So I thank you all for joining us, and on behalf of the Dr. Allen and the administration of Delaware State, stay safe, and we will see you next week. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.